Ambassador Lee Min-ho walked into the massive council chamber, his footsteps echoing against the crystalline walls. The emergency session had been called with just 12 hours' notice. Something big was happening, and humanity was about to find out what? The chamber buzzed with nervous energy as dozens of alien species filled their designated seats. Min-ho had attended many council meetings before, but never had he seen such tension in the air. The Valkyrie delegation whispered among themselves, their blue skin flickering with agitation. The insectoid Thraxians clicked their mandibles in. What Min-ho had learned was their equivalent of worried muttering. Then the announcement came. Citizens of the galaxy, boomed Council Leader Zephin, his voice carrying across the chamber. We face our darkest hour. The Devourers have returned. A collective gasp rippled through the assembly. Min-ho felt his own blood run cold. Every species in the galaxy knew the legends of the Devourers, ancient beings who had supposedly consumed entire star systems before vanishing into the void millennia ago. 3 outer rim colonies have fallen, Zephin continued, his tentacles writhing with apparent grief. The Kepler Station, New Havana, Port Meridian, all devoured, all gone. The chamber erupted in panic. Representatives stood shouting questions and demands. Min-ho watched it all, his diplomatic training keeping his face neutral even as his mind raced. He had friends on New Havana, good people. If what Zephin said was true, ... double quotes, we must unite, Zephin called out, restoring order. Every species, every fleet, every resource. The Great War begins now. One by one, the alien delegations stood to pledge their support. The Valkyrie offered their fastest ships. The Thraxians promised their warrior castes. The crystalline resonance would provide their energy weapons. It was a stirring display of galactic unity. But something felt off. Park Ju-wool, sitting in the human delegation's intelligence section, was furiously taking notes. His trained eye caught details others missed. The way the Valkyrie representative glanced at his notes before speaking. How the Thraxian queen's speech matched almost word for word what the resonant ambassador had said moments before. Timing was too perfect, too rehearsed. When humanity's turn came, Min-ho rose slowly. The United Earth Federation stands ready to defend our galaxy, he declared. We offer our fleets, our resources, and our lives if necessary. The chamber applauded, but Min-ho noticed something else. Several alien representatives exchanged quick glances. There was something almost dismissive in their expressions, as if humanity's contribution was merely a formality. Excellent, Zephin said, his tone slightly condescending. Humanity shall serve as our junior partners in this great endeavor. Your enthusiasm is ... noted, junior partners. The word stung, but Min-ho kept his expression neutral. He had expected this. Despite humanity's technological advances, most alien species still viewed them as newcomers to galactic civilization. As the session continued, Gu-Wu kept documenting anomalies. The casualty reports all arrived at suspiciously similar times. Species that had been locked in territorial disputes for decades suddenly seemed like best friends. Trade rivals were sharing military secrets without hesitation. When the formal session ended, Min-ho and Ji-Woo walked silently back to their shuttle. Only when they were safely inside did Ji-Woo speak. Sir, something's not right about this whole situation. Min-ho nodded grimly. I was thinking the same thing. Timing, the coordination, the way they're treating us. Like they're following a script, Gi-Woo said, and we're not supposed to notice. As their shuttle lifted off from the council station, Min-ho stared out at the stars. Humanity had just committed to a war that might not be what it seemed. The question was, what were they really walking into? Captain Kim Tajin gripped the armrest of his command chair as the EU's Ranger dropped out of hyperspace. The stars shifted back into focus, revealing the barren system where New Havana colony had supposedly been wiped out just days ago. His crew was silent, all eyes fixed on the main screen. Sir, I'm detecting debris fields ahead, reported Lieutenant Park from the sensor station. It looks like ... pieces of the colony. Kim nodded grimly. Take us in slowly. Full sensor sweep. They approached what remained of New Havana. The scene was devastating. Chunks of metal and plastic floated in the void where 20,000 people had once lived and worked. The colony's main habitat ring was cracked in half, its sections spinning slowly through space, like broken toys. "This is horrible," whispered Ensign Lee at the communications console. "All those people." But Choi Sora, Kim's tactical officer, was frowning at her readings. She had been analyzing destroyed ships and stations for over a decade, and something here didn't add up. "Captain," she said quietly, "could you look at this?" Kim moved to her station, studying the damage analysis on her screen. Sara pointed to the debris patterns with a stylus. "See these burn marks? They're too uniform, too precise. When the Thraxians attacked Kepler Station 5 years ago, the damage was chaotic, random. But this." She highlighted several sections. "Every cut is perfectly straight. Every explosion happened at exactly the right structural weak points." Kim felt a chill run down his spine. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying whoever did this knew exactly how to destroy this colony efficiently. They didn't just attack it randomly. They planned every single blast. 300 light-years away." Dr. Yoon Hejin sat in her cramped office at Human Intelligence Command, surrounded by screens showing scrolling alien text. She had been monitoring galactic communications for 12 years, and something was bothering her about the recent traffic patterns. The aliens claimed they were panicking about the Devourer attacks. Their public broadcasts were full of fear and confusion, but their encrypted military channels told a different story. "Computer, show me the communication timestamps from the Valkyrie fleet," she said. The data appeared on her main screen. Message after message, all perfectly timed. The Valkyrie had supposedly learned about the attacks at the same time as everyone else, but their military responses had been coordinated down to the minute. Now overlay the Thraxian fleet communications. The patterns matched almost exactly. Two species that barely talked to each other during peacetime were suddenly moving their fleets in perfect synchronization. Either they had developed telepathy, or they had been planning this for a long time. Yoon pulled up more data streams. The Resonance, the Aquatic Consortium, the Stone Builders, all showing the same impossible level of coordination. Her fingers flew over the keyboard as she dug deeper into the encrypted channels. Then she found it. A single message bounced through 17 different relay stations, written in a code she had never seen before. But the timestamp was from 2 days before the first attack. Someone had been giving orders before the Devourer supposedly struck. Halfway across the galaxy, Lim Dong-hyuk nursed a drink at a seedy bar on Nexus Station. To anyone watching, he looked like just another human trader trying to make a living in alien space. But Dong-hyuk worked for human intelligence, and what he was hearing tonight made his blood run cold. "Yeah, business is booming," laughed Grix, a four-armed weapons dealer who had been selling illegal firearms for 30 years. "Everyone wants military-grade stuff now. The Devourers got everyone spooked." Dong-hyuk nodded casually. "Must have caught you by surprise, though. Ancient enemies returning and all that," Grix snorted. "Surprise? Friend. I've been stockpiling heavy weapons for 6 months. My contacts told me something big was coming. Smart money knew this was going to happen." 6 months? Dong-hyuk tried to keep his voice neutral. "That's some good intel. The best. Of course, now everyone's playing catch-up. The Thraxians cleaned out my entire stock of plasma rifles yesterday. The Valkyrie bought enough explosives to level a moon. Hell, even the peaceful Resonance are buying combat drones." Dong-hyuk finished his drink and made his excuses. As he walked back to his ship, his mind was racing. 6 months of preparation, weapons dealers getting advance notice, fleets coordinating before the attacks even happened. Back on the Ranger, Captain Kim received the encrypted reports from both Dr. Yoon and Dong-hyuk. He stared at the data, pieces of a massive puzzle falling into place. "Sora," he called to his tactical officer. "Remember what you said about the damage being too precise?" She nodded, like they knew exactly what they were doing. What if the people who destroyed these colonies weren't ancient enemies at all? The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. If the Devourers weren't real, then who was really behind the attacks? And why was humanity being dragged into a war that might not be what it seemed? Nam Jisoo stared at the holographic display. In the secure briefing room, her hands trembling slightly as she connected the final pieces of evidence. Around the table sat the best human intelligence officers from across the galaxy, their faces grim as the horrifying truth became clear. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady, despite the magnitude of what she was about to reveal. "The Devourers don't exist. They never did." The room erupted in shocked whispers. Commander Wu raised his hand for silence, but Nam could see the disbelief in his eyes. "I know how it sounds," she continued, "but look at the evidence. Sight shows the same precision damage patterns. Every alien response was coordinated weeks in advance. And most damning of all, dot." She tapped her tablet, bringing up a new display. "We've tracked the movement of evacuated populations. The hologram showed shipping routes crisscrossing the galaxy. Red dots marked the supposedly destroyed colonies, while blue lines traced cargo ships moving from those locations to industrial worlds in the galactic core. The people from these colonies didn't die," Nam explained. "They were moved, relocated to factory worlds where they're working in conditions that would make our worst sweatshops look like luxury resorts." SCO Jinho leaned forward, his laptop showing streams of intercepted data. "I've been tracking the financial records. The Galactic Council's inner circle has been buying up industrial facilities and mining operations for 2 years. They needed workers, but galactic labor laws made it impossible to force people into such conditions. So they created a crisis," Nam said grimly. "A war so terrible that entire populations would beg to be relocated to safety. Except that safety turned out to be forced labor camps." Yonho pulled up another screen. "The beauty of their plan is the timeline. The Council announces the Devourer threat, colonies get attacked, and populations evacuated for their own protection. Then those same populations disappear into the industrial machine of the core worlds. By the time anyone realizes what happened, the paper trail leads to ancient monsters that don't exist." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't fighting an ancient enemy. They were caught in an elaborate scheme designed by the very government that was supposed to protect them. "But why involve us?" asked Agent Park. "Why drag humanity into this?" Nam nodded toward Mignon, who was monitoring alien diplomatic channels from her workstation. Mignon looked up, her expression bitter. "Because we're the perfect pawns," she said. "I've been listening to their private communications for weeks. They don't even try to hide it anymore. Here, listen to this." She played back a recording of Council Leader Zephin speaking to his inner circle. The translation software rendered his words in cold, clinical English. "The humans are ideal for our purposes. Primitive enough to believe our story, numerous enough to serve as effective cannon fodder, and isolated enough that their disappearance won't destabilize the core worlds." The recording continued with casual discussion of human military capabilities, dismissing their technology as crude but adequate and their tactics as predictably straightforward. To the aliens, humanity was nothing more than a useful tool to be used up and discarded. "They're planning to throw us into the worst battles," Mignon continued. "Places where casualties will be heaviest. They figure we'll either die fighting their fake war or be so weakened that will never pose a threat to their new order." Junho brought up another display showing galactic resource distribution. "Look at this. Every species getting reduced to junior partner status happens to control valuable resources or strategic locations. The Kepler Mining Consortium controlled rare Earth deposits. New Havana was sitting on the largest helium-3 reserves in the Outer Rim. Port Meridian controlled the main shipping lanes to 3 different sectors. It's not random," Nam realized. "They're not just eliminating inconvenient populations. They're seizing control of everything valuable in the galaxy." Briefing room fell silent again as the full scope of the deception became clear. The Galactic Council, humanity's supposed allies, had engineered a fake war to reshape galactic civilization. They planned to eliminate or enslave entire species while positioning themselves as the saviors of the galaxy. "So what do we do?" asked Commander Wu. Finally, Nam looked around the table at her fellow officers. These were people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity and maintaining galactic peace. Now, they faced a choice that would determine not just humanity's fate, but the future of free civilization itself. "We prepare for the real war," she said quietly, "because once we expose this deception, they'll have no choice but to try to destroy us completely. They can't afford to let the truth get out." The weight of responsibility settled on everyone. In the room, they were about to go up against the most powerful alliance in galactic history, armed with nothing but the truth and their determination to protect innocent lives. But as Nam looked at the faces around her, she felt something she hadn't expected: hope. Because if there was one thing humans had always been good at, it was fighting impossible odds. Admiral Zhang Wu Jin stood in the hidden command center buried 3 kilometers beneath Earth's surface, watching dozens of holographic displays showing the greatest military buildup in human history. The irony wasn't lost on him. While the galaxy believed humanity was sending their few ships to fight fake monsters, they were actually preparing for a war that would determine the fate of free civilization. "Status report," he said to his aide, Colonel Kim. "Operation Ghost Fleet is ahead of schedule, sir. We now have 237 ships that officially don't exist. The Titan-class battleships are performing beyond expectations." Wu Jin nodded, studying the construction reports. Every human world was secretly building warships, hidden in asteroid mining operations and deep space construction platforms. Aliens monitoring human activities saw exactly what they expected: primitive species struggling to contribute to the war effort with outdated technology. They had no idea that human engineers had been reverse engineering alien technology for decades, improving on designs that alien species had considered perfected for centuries. The new human ships combined alien energy weapons with human tactical innovations, creating vessels that could outfight anything in the known galaxy. "The Koreans are launching their stealth carrier today," Colonel Kim continued. "The Japanese have completed their missile destroyer squadron. Even the smaller colonies are contributing. New Seoul just finished their first dreadnought." On the other side of human space, Engineer Kong the Jin wiped sweat from her forehead as she inspected the latest agricultural processing facility on Harmony Colony. To any casual observer, it looked like a typical farming operation: massive silos, processing equipment, and transport vehicles moving between the fields. But the Jin knew better. Those silos contained enough missiles to level a small fleet. The processing equipment was actually shield generators powerful enough to protect the entire colony and those transport vehicles. It could deploy automated defense turrets in under 5 minutes. "The camouflage is perfect," reported her assistant Lee Dongwoo. "Even our own colonists don't know what we've built here. They think we're just improving their farming infrastructure." The Jin smiled grimly. "That's the point. When the aliens come, they'll expect to find helpless farmers. Instead, they'll find one of the most heavily defended positions in human space." She pulled up her tablet, checking the status of similar projects across human territory. New Tokyo's weather control system was actually a planetary defense grid. The Deep Ocean Research Station on Poseidon was a submarine fleet base. The solar collection array orbiting New Berlin could redirect enough energy to power 100 cities or vaporize an alien battleship. Every human world was becoming a fortress. But the aliens still saw them as vulnerable frontier settlements populated by primitive farmers and miners. Meanwhile, Baek Sung-ho sat in a coffee shop on Nexus Station, apparently just another human businessman trying to make deals in alien space. In reality, he was meeting with the most important spy network in galactic history. "The teachers are ready," said Park Hiram, stirring her coffee casually. To anyone watching, she looked like a normal school principal from the outer colonies. In truth, she commanded a network of 300 resistance cells across human space. "My students have been very dedicated," added Professor Yoon, adjusting his glasses. His students were actually military personnel who had been given civilian covers and planted throughout human society.
Ow.
When the time came, teachers would become tactical coordinators, farmers would become soldiers, and shopkeepers would become intelligence operatives. "What about the alien sympathizers?" Baek asked quietly. "Handled," Park replied. We've identified everyone who might side with the Council. They're being fed false information about our capabilities. So they think we're just as unprepared as the aliens believe. Sung-Ho nodded. The Human Resistance Network was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of a traditional military structure, they had created a civilian network that could transform an entire society into a fighting force overnight. Every human colony had teachers who were secretly military officers, farmers who were weapons, experts, and shopkeepers who were intelligence analysts. The beauty of it, Sung-Ho mused, is that we're hiding in plain sight. The aliens think they understand human society, but they have no idea how deep our preparations go. Back on Earth, Admiral Wu Jin received the latest reports from across human space. The Ghost Fleet was nearly complete. The fortress worlds were ready. The resistance network was in place. Humanity had spent months preparing for a war the aliens didn't even know was coming, Sir Colonel Kim said. We're receiving reports that the alien fleets are beginning to position themselves for the final phase of their fake war. Intelligence suggests they're planning to eliminate us within the next few weeks. Wu Jin looked at the tactical display showing alien fleet movements. They were moving into position to destroy humanity, confident that they faced a weak, primitive species. With outdated technology and no real military capability, let them come, he said quietly. They think they're about to crush a helpless species. Instead, they're about to discover that humanity has been preparing for this moment from the very beginning. The silent preparation was complete. Now came the hard part, showing the galaxy that humanity was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Ambassador Lee Min-ho straightened his tie as he entered the council chamber, his expression carefully crafted to show the perfect mix of determination and uncertainty. After months of practice, he had mastered the art of appearing earnest, but slightly overwhelmed, exactly what the alien council members expected from a primitive human diplomat. Honored Council, he began, his voice carrying just a hint of nervousness. I bring updates on humanity's contribution to the war effort. Council leader Zephin leaned forward, his tentacles writhing with what Minho had learned to recognize as barely concealed amusement. Please, Ambassador, share your ... progress. Minho pulled up a holographic display showing fabricated human fleet positions. Our forces are stretched thin, I'm afraid. We've committed 70% of our naval capacity to the Outer Rim, but our ships are, well, they're not as advanced as we'd hoped. We're losing vessels faster than we can replace them. The alien delegates exchanged glances. Perfect. They were eating up every word. Perhaps, suggested the Velkari representative with false sympathy, humanity should consider focusing on support roles, supply lines, medical assistance, that sort of thing. Minho nodded eagerly, playing the part of a grateful junior partner. That's very generous of you. Our shipyards are working around the clock, but we're producing mostly transport vessels and medical ships. Nothing that would be useful in actual combat. What he didn't mention was that those transport vessels were actually stealth troop carriers. And the medical ships were mobile command centers equipped with the most advanced jamming technology humanity had ever developed. The aliens saw exactly what they expected to see, a struggling species trying desperately to contribute to a war beyond their capabilities. 3 sectors away, Captain Kim Tae-jian stood on the bridge of the UES Ranger, watching his tactical display. With grim satisfaction, his ship was officially engaged in a desperate battle against a devourer assault fleet. In reality, he was conducting the most elaborate military theater in galactic history. All stations, prepare for casualty reports, he announced. Remember, we're supposed to be taking heavy losses here. His crew nodded, each playing their assigned role perfectly. Communications Officer Shin Hae-won began broadcasting carefully crafted distress signals, making sure they reached not just human command, but also the alien intelligence networks that were secretly monitoring human communications. Mayday, Mayday. This is the UES Ranger. We're under heavy attack. The Devourers are everywhere. We've lost the destroyer Busan and the frigate Dejin, requesting immediate assistance. Of course, the Busan and Dejin were perfectly fine currently, hiding in a nebula 50 light-years away. But the alien eavesdroppers would record another example of human incompetence in the face of superior firepower. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Park from the sensor station, "we're detecting Valkyrie observation drones at the edge of the system. They're recording everything." Kim smiled grimly. "Could make sure they get a good show. Full spread of photon torpedoes, maximum visual impact, minimal actual damage." The space around the Ranger lit up with explosions and energy beams, a spectacular light show that would convince any observer that a massive battle was taking place. In reality, Kim's weapons were firing at empty space and prepositioned debris fields. The Devourer ships were nothing more than sensor ghosts created by advanced holographic projectors. Haywen continued her performance, injecting just the right amount of panic into her voice. "We're taking heavy damage. Engineering reports power failures on decks 7 through 12. We can't hold them off much longer." The beautiful part was that every casualty report, every destroyed human ship, is actually a vessel being secretly repositioned for the real conflict to come. Aliens thought they were watching humanity get systematically destroyed. Instead, they were watching the largest military redeployment in human history. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Ryukyung-min walked through the corridors of the Thraxian command ship, his human liaison uniform marking him as a harmless observer. The insectoid aliens barely acknowledged his presence, which was exactly what he wanted. "The human fleet movements are predictable," chittered Admiral Thax to his subordinates. "They cluster their ships for protection, making them easy targets. Their tactical doctrine is centuries behind ours." Kung-min nodded respectfully, making notes on his tablet. "We have much to learn from the Thraxian military tradition," he said humbly. "Perhaps you could show me your fleet deployment charts? For educational purposes." The Admiral's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Of course, young human. Perhaps your species will learn something useful before the war ends." As Thax brought up the tactical displays, Kung-min memorized every detail. Fleet positions, patrol routes, supply lines, communication protocols, all invaluable intelligence. That would give humanity a decisive advantage when the real fighting began. He had spent months building relationships with alien officers, playing the role of an eager student learning from his superiors. They had no idea that every casual conversation, every educational briefing, was providing humanity with detailed maps of their military capabilities. "The Valkyrie are positioning their fleets here," Thax continued, highlighting sectors on the display. "Useful allies, though their energy weapons are somewhat crude, not like our plasma cannons." Kung-min made appropriate sounds of admiration while mentally cataloging the information. The Thraxians were willing participants in the conspiracy, but they were also arrogant enough to reveal their own weaknesses. Their plasma cannons were powerful but slow to recharge. Their ships were heavily armored but poor at maneuvering. All useful information for the battles to come. Back on Earth, Admiral Wu Jin received the latest intelligence reports from across human space. The fake war was proceeding perfectly. The aliens were growing more confident by the day, convinced that humanity was being systematically weakened and would soon be eliminated entirely. "They think they're watching us lose," he told his staff. "Instead, they're watching us position ourselves for the greatest military surprise in galactic history." Game was almost over. Soon humanity would reveal that they had been playing by different rules all along.